Hello, I'm a fan of Back to the Future, and over the years I've watched videos that have mentioned mistakes or plot holes that are in Back to the Future. And a lot of them I don't really agree with. So now I'm going to mention my problems with the problems of Back to the Future, or my plot holes with the plot holes of Back to the Future. One of the first plot holes I hear mentioned a lot is that Marty's parents in 1985, they should recognise him. Why don't they? Well, you have to remember, in the movie, we saw Marty return to 1985 and he only spent about 1 or 2 minutes with his new parents in that movie. It shouldn't be strange that we think they didn't mention it then. In fact, his parents may have mentioned many times over the years how Marty looks like the Marty that got them together. They may have mentioned this in 1984, they may have mentioned it in 1983, or maybe in 1982, but we never saw those years. Another problem people point out is that when Marty goes into the future, his future self shouldn't be there because he jumped over that period of time. What this means essentially, when Einstein went 1 minute into the future in the first movie, he jumped over that period of time, so there was no other Einstein waiting for him there who was 1 minute older. Well, what if Einstein jumped 10 minutes into the future? There'll still be no older Einstein there. What if he went 1 year into the future? Or 10 years? There'll still be no future Einstein there waiting for him. Well, what if it was Marty instead? What if he went 10 years into the future? Well, there will still be no future Marty there. So the same would happen when Marty goes ahead 30 years. This is not a plot hole. This would make sense if Marty went there for a reason that had nothing to do with his future self being there. But Doc took him there specifically because Doc saw a problem with Marty's future self. If future Marty vanished, then Doc's original reason for going back to get Marty was gone. Then the original future would have gone back to normal with the future Marty there and the original problem back again. Both realities would need to be true. Marty going there and his future self being there. But the reason to go there is erased as a result of Marty's hoverboard chase. The future Marty that is there in the movie does not seem to know of his younger self's trip to 2015 on this day. This is because it would not have been the same Marty who had a trip to 2015 to save his son. This would be a future Marty who remembers Doc returning from the future with no bad news, since he travelled into the timeline in which Marty had fixed the problem. The problem was fixed by Marty, which meant a different Marty had no reason to go back to the future to fix it, therefore creating the problem again. So, future Marty being there makes perfect sense. Plot hole. Marty's whole family changed at the end of the first Back to the Future movie, but Marty didn't change? This isn't really a plot hole. Marty's mother, brother and sister were influenced by George and allowed themselves to become less than they could have been. But Marty never did. Marty had a desire to be much more as a teenager in 1985. For example, he was a great guitarist, a singer, a skateboarder, all skills that take practice. His father becoming successful removed the bad influence he would have had on his wife, Dave and Linda. Marty was never a loser in 1985 to begin with. In Back to the Future 2, Biff is knocked out by George and is supposed to become a wimp, but then he still angrily comes after Marty. George states that he had to stay on top of Biff since high school. It would have been a continuous thing, not just the one punch and that's it. Another plot hole that people have mentioned is that Doc couldn't even get gasoline to help the time machine in 1885. But when we see him arrive in 1985, from 100 years in the past, he has a huge time machine that can fly. This is not a plot hole. Doc wasn't able to build a new type of time machine in his first experience in 1885 because he had died in that same year and hadn't had enough time to think of how to create a new type of time machine. But once Marty had saved him from being shot by Tannen, then he presumably remained in the late 1800s for another 5 to 10 years after Marty had left him. And he could then think of a better idea during his extra time to then build it, travel to the future, upgrade it, and go back to 1885. Another problem I hear people mention is that the redhead kid at the dance takes Lorraine to dance with from George, and this starts affecting the timeline of Marty. People have said this is a plot hole since Marty didn't put this event into place. Marty should start fading out because he can still alter time and hasn't finished playing the song yet. He has to keep playing. If at any point Marty thought that his job was done, he could leave the Earth Angel song in the middle of it, and then Lorraine would not kiss George and he would not be born. He has to keep playing, and the fading out is a reminder of this. Okay, and now for my problem. A plot hole that I never hear mentioned, ever. Lorraine at the dance, when you look at it from her point of view, it's very odd. She goes with Marty as his date. He is beaten up and carried away. George then saves Lorraine and she forgets about Marty. She dances with George, doesn't care why Marty is playing guitar on stage or even if he can see her. She then kisses George, goes home with him even though Marty was her date and he didn't do anything bad to her. She doesn't think there's anything wrong with this. Doesn't ask him what happened to him after he was beaten up. Doesn't ask him why he was on stage playing the guitar and acts as if it's all okay at the end when saying goodbye to Marty. It's very strange when you look at it solely from only Lorraine's point of view. It's one other plot hole I never hear mentioned. Travelling through time in Back to the Future makes you arrive at the same point in space. Then why wouldn't you arrive in space, off the planet Earth? If the universe is constantly expanding, the Earth rotates around the sun, the Earth spins once every 24 hours, and apparently even our galaxy rotates. Why wouldn't he arrive in space? Why is he actually on Earth at all? Thank you for listening. I'd like to remind anyone that I'm a huge fan of Back to the Future and actually love watching the videos that mention holes with Back to the Future. So please don't think I was criticizing anyone for mentioning the problems with Back to the Future. I just wanted to address the problems with Back to the Future or the plot holes with the plot holes of Back to the Future. Thanks. Bye.